My best friend's older brother asked me to be his date, but he never told me why. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. It only takes a second, costs nothing, and helps us continue bringing you more emotional and dramatic stories like this one. Your support means more to us than you know. Also, tell us where you are watching from today by leaving your city or country in the comments below. Thank you so much. Now, let us return to our main character. How long have you been dating my brother? Noah asked, holding up his phone like it contained evidence from a crime scene. I stared at the photograph glowing on the screen. Caleb Bennett's hand rested at the small of my back. My face was turned toward his, and judging by the way we were looking at each other, we appeared less like two men pretending to be a couple and more like the final scene of a romantic movie neither of us remembered agreeing to film. We're not dating, I said. Noah's eyebrows climbed. Then why is my brother kissing you in front of half of Chicago? That was an excellent question. Unfortunately, I had spent the past 12 hours avoiding the answer. 3 days earlier, my biggest problem had been a coffee stain spreading across a client's logo draft. I was working from a small cafe near my apartment, trying to convince myself the stain looked artistic, when a shadow fell across my laptop. I looked up and nearly forgot how breathing worked. Caleb stood beside my table in a charcoal coat, his dark hair still damp from the cold November rain. At 30, he had perfected the kind of calm expression that made everyone else feel slightly disorganized. I had known him for 6 years, which meant I had spent 6 years pretending his smile did not make my thoughts fall down a flight of stairs. Ethan, he said, do you have plans Saturday night? I glanced behind me, just in case another Ethan had appeared. That depends. Are you asking because you need help moving something heavy? No. Then I'm suddenly available. His mouth almost curved. Almost. Caleb never wasted a full smile when a smaller one could ruin my week just as effectively. He sat across from me and placed both hands around his untouched coffee. That was the first sign something was wrong. Caleb drank coffee the way ordinary people used oxygen. I need you to come to a fundraiser with me, he said. As my date. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my nervous system had apparently selected comedy as its emergency response. Caleb did not laugh. You're serious? Yes. You want me to be your date? For one evening. The words should have made the situation clearer. Instead, they made my chest feel strangely hollow. One evening. Temporary. Harmless. Exactly the kind of arrangement a sensible person would reject before old feelings woke up and started redecorating. Why me? I asked. Caleb's gaze held mine for one quiet second too long. Because you're the only person I trust to make it believable. That answer should have satisfied me. It did not. Before I could press him, he added one condition. Noah cannot know until after the event. My best friend was Caleb's younger brother, which made secrecy a terrible idea for at least 12 separate reasons. I knew that. Caleb knew that. Still, when he asked whether I would do it, I heard myself say yes. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the way his shoulders relaxed when I agreed. Or maybe some reckless part of me had been waiting years for Caleb Bennett to choose me, even if he still refused to tell me why. By Friday afternoon, I had convinced myself that agreeing to Caleb's request was not a terrible decision. It was simply an unusual decision made by a normally intelligent man experiencing a temporary shortage of judgment. That explanation held together until Caleb picked me up outside my apartment in a black sedan and handed me a garment bag. What is this? I asked. Your suit. I stared at him. I own a suit. You own a navy blazer with one loose button. That blazer has character. It has surrender. I should have been offended, but Caleb's expression remained so serious that I laughed instead. He drove us to a quiet menswear shop on Oak Street where the staff greeted him by name. Of course they did. Caleb looked like he had been professionally tailored at birth. I, meanwhile, walked in wearing sneakers and a coat that had survived 3 Chicago winters through stubbornness alone. A sales associate led me toward a fitting room while Caleb selected a charcoal suit, a white shirt, and a deep green tie without asking my opinion. You seem very confident. I said. Green suits you. How would you know? He looked at me as if the answer were obvious. You wore that color at Noah's graduation. I stopped. That had been 4 years ago. I barely remembered what I had worn. Caleb remembered. I told myself architects notice details. Buildings, lines, colors. Apparently also the exact shade of a college graduate's best friend. When I stepped out of the fitting room, Caleb went quiet. Not the ordinary Caleb quiet. This silence felt different, almost startled. His gaze moved over the suit, then returned to my face. Too much? I asked. No, his voice was lower than before. It is right. The sales associate smiled like she knew something I did not. I immediately distrusted her. Caleb stepped closer and adjusted my tie. His fingers moved carefully, never brushing more than necessary, but my entire nervous system reacted as if he had set off an alarm. Hold still, he said. I am holding still. You are leaning backward. That is because you are standing very close. His mouth curved again. A full smile this time. Catastrophic. After the fitting, we sat in a cafe across the street to create the details of our imaginary relationship. According to Caleb, we had been seeing each other for 3 months. Our first date had been at a small Italian restaurant in Lincoln Park. I preferred sparkling water with lime. He knew I hated crowded elevators, always ordered fries even when I claimed I was not hungry, and listened to old soul music when I worked late. How do you know all of that? I asked. Caleb looked down at his coffee. You talk. I listen. The answer landed somewhere deep and inconvenient. Then he slid a small velvet box across the table. Inside was a pair of silver cuff links shaped like tiny stars. My breath caught. Years earlier, I had drawn the same design in a sketchbook I lost during college. Where did you find these? I whispered. Caleb's hand tightened around his cup. They reminded me of you. That was not an answer. Before I could ask again, he looked directly at me and said, There are 3 rules for tomorrow night. Stay close to me. Follow my lead. And whatever happens, do not believe everything you hear. Saturday evening arrived with freezing rain tapping against my apartment windows and my confidence disappearing one reasonable thought at a time. Caleb arrived at 7 sharp, wearing a black overcoat over a dark suit that fit him with the unfair precision of a magazine advertisement. For 1 full second, I forgot every rule of human conversation. You look good, he said. Simple words. Calm voice. Complete destruction. I glanced down at the charcoal suit he had chosen for me. You paid enough for it. It should probably file taxes. Caleb almost laughed, then reached up and straightened my tie. His fingers paused near the knot. Nervous? No. I always forget how to breathe before charity events. His eyes softened. Stay close to me. That sentence followed me all the way downtown. The fundraiser occupied the top floor of a hotel overlooking the Chicago River, where glass walls reflected chandeliers, tailored suits, and enough expensive jewelry to fund my rent for several lifetimes. The moment we stepped inside, Caleb placed one hand lightly against my back. It was practical, supportive, entirely appropriate. My heart reacted as if he had written me a love letter. Remember, he murmured. We have been together 3 months. Our first date was Italian food in Lincoln Park. You ordered tiramisu and claimed you did not want to share. Because imaginary me has boundaries. Real you ate half of Noah's birthday cake before anyone arrived. I turned toward him. You remember that? Caleb's expression shifted, almost guarded. I remember many things about you. Before I could ask what that meant, a silver-haired man approached and greeted Caleb with the bright smile of someone who measured people by their usefulness. Caleb introduced him as Martin Hale, a senior partner at his architecture firm. Then Caleb introduced me, not as a favor, not as a friend. This is Ethan Walker, he said, his hand still warm at my back. He is an independent designer, and the most talented person I know. I looked at him so quickly that Martin laughed. You did not tell him you say that about him, did you? Caleb's hand went still. Apparently not. The evening became a strange performance in which Caleb seemed to know every line before I spoke it. He brought me sparkling water with lime. He steered conversations toward design when I grew quiet. When the crowd pressed too close, he guided me toward the windows without making a scene. None of it felt like acting. That was the problem. Near the ballroom entrance, a woman in a silver dress watched us with an expression too thoughtful to be friendly. She crossed the room with measured confidence and stopped directly in front of Caleb. "So this is Ethan," she said. Caleb's jaw tightened. "Lauren." She turned to me and offered a polished smile. "I have heard a great deal about you." "That makes one of us," I replied. Her smile faded at the edges. Then she looked at Caleb and asked, "Does he know why you brought him here?" The room seemed to grow quieter, although the music never stopped. I looked at Caleb. He did not answer. Lauren's gaze returned to me, gentler now, which somehow felt worse. "You should ask him what he is trying to prevent tonight," she said. Caleb stepped closer to me, but for the first time since we arrived, his touch did not feel reassuring. It felt like a warning arriving too late. For one long second, I forgot that we were surrounded by music, crystal glasses, and several hundred people pretending not to listen. I looked at Caleb, waiting for him to explain. He did not. His expression remained controlled, but the hand at my back had gone tense. "What is she talking about?" I asked quietly. "Not here," he said. Lauren gave a small, humorless laugh. "Of course not here. That would require honesty." Caleb's eyes hardened, but his voice stayed calm. "Lauren, this is neither the time nor the place. It became the place when you brought him." She looked at me again, and there was no cruelty in her face now, only concern. That frightened me more than hostility would have. Before I could ask another question, an older man approached us. He had Caleb's height, Caleb's gray eyes, and none of Caleb's warmth. I recognized him immediately from photographs in business magazines. Richard Bennett, Caleb's father. "There you are," Richard said. His gaze moved from Caleb to me, pausing just long enough to make me feel inspected. "And this must be Ethan." Caleb stepped slightly closer to my side. "Yes." Richard offered his hand. His smile was polished and distant. "I have heard your name before." "Hopefully in a sentence that ended well," I said. Caleb's thumb pressed once against my back, a quiet warning not to turn nervousness into stand-up comedy. Richard did not smile. "My son has always had unusual timing." Lauren inhaled slowly. Caleb's shoulders tightened. I had the uncomfortable feeling that everyone had received a script except me. Richard turned toward Caleb. "The announcement is scheduled for 9. "There will be no announcement," Caleb said. His voice was low, but something in it changed the air around us. Richard glanced at me again. "You are willing to embarrass your family over this?" The word this landed like I was not a person at all, only an inconvenience wearing an expensive suit. Caleb moved in front of me by half a step. "Ethan is not an embarrassment." "Then what is he?" Richard asked. My stomach dropped. Caleb could have said friend. He could have said guest. He could have reminded everyone that this was only an arrangement. Instead, he turned toward me. His calm expression had finally cracked, revealing something uncertain beneath it. "He is not a phase," Caleb said. The words were meant for his father, but his eyes stayed on mine. Around us, conversations thinned into silence. Richard's mouth tightened. "You expect anyone to believe this sudden performance?" Lauren looked between us, then said softly, "Perhaps he should prove it." I nearly laughed from panic. "That seems unnecessarily dramatic." Caleb did not move. "Ethan," he said, barely above a whisper, "you can say no." That mattered. Even with every eye in the room on us, he gave me a way out. I should have taken it. Instead, I thought about the cuff links, the sparkling water, the way he remembered my green shirt from 4 years ago. I thought about every careful touch that had felt too honest to be part of a lie. So I stepped closer. Caleb searched my face once, giving me one final chance to change my mind. Then he leaned in and kissed me. It was brief and gentle, Nothing more than a quiet press of his lips against mine, but the room disappeared anyway. When he pulled back, his composure was gone. His eyes looked almost startled, and his hand trembled where it held mine. "I am sorry," he whispered. "That was not supposed to feel real." For a moment, neither of us moved. The applause around us sounded distant, like rain against thick glass. Caleb still held my hand, and his expression had lost every trace of control. "What do you mean it was not supposed to feel real?" I asked. His eyes searched mine, but before he could answer, Richard stepped closer. "This performance has gone far enough." Caleb turned toward him, and the warmth vanished from his face. "There is no announcement tonight." Richard's jaw tightened. "The partnership with the Whitmores has taken months to arrange." There it was, the missing reason. Lauren crossed her arms. "My father planned to announce an engagement between Caleb and me. It was never my idea, but apparently nobody thought that mattered." I looked from her to Caleb. "So I am here to stop an engagement?" "Ethan," Caleb said, "I can explain. That would be new." The words came out sharper than I intended. I pulled my hand from his and walked toward the terrace doors before my face could reveal how much this hurt. Cold air met me outside, carrying the smell of wet pavement and the river below. I gripped the railing and tried to organize my thoughts, but they refused to stand in a straight line. Caleb had chosen me. Caleb had kissed me. Caleb had also failed to mention that I was part of a public strategy against his father. The terrace door opened behind me. I expected Caleb. Instead, Lauren stepped outside. "I am sorry," she said. "I did not mean for you to learn this way." How exactly was I supposed to learn it? From him, preferably. She stood beside me, leaving several feet between us. "For what it is worth, you were not his easiest option." I looked at her. "That is not especially comforting." There were people here tonight who would have played the role without asking questions. People his father already respected. Caleb refused every one of them. "Then why me?" Lauren gave me a tired smile. "That is the question he has been avoiding for 5 years." My breath caught. 5 years. "He talks about you more than he realizes. Your work, your terrible cooking, the time you drove through a snowstorm because Noah had the flu." I stared at the dark river. "That does not prove anything." "No," she said, "but this might." When my father suggested the engagement, Caleb said there was already someone he could not betray, even if that person never knew. Before I could respond, the door opened again. Caleb stepped onto the terrace, his face pale with worry. Lauren passed him without a word, leaving us alone. "You should have told me," I said. "I know. You made me think this was harmless. I wanted it to be." I laughed once, quietly. "You brought me into a family business fight and called it a date. I brought you because I could not stand beside anyone else and pretend." His voice cracked at the edges. "That is the truth." "Then why did you hide it?" Caleb looked toward the city lights. "Because the full truth could cost me more than my father's approval." "What full truth?" He faced me again, and for one breath I thought he would finally say it. Then his phone rang. Noah's name lit the screen. Caleb went still. I understood the fear in his face, but in that moment, it felt like another choice not to choose me. "Answer him," I said. "Ethan, wait. I have been waiting for years without even knowing it." I walked past him, and this time he did not try to stop me. By the time I reached my apartment, the photograph had already found its way online. Caleb's hand at my waist, my face tilted toward his. The kiss captured at exactly the wrong angle, or maybe the right one, depending on how much damage a single image could do. I stood in my kitchen staring at my phone while notifications multiplied like they had somewhere urgent to be. Then Noah called. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th, guilt won. "Please tell me there is a reasonable explanation," he said the moment I answered. "There is an explanation." "That is not what I asked." I closed my eyes. Noah had been my best friend since college. He knew when I was lying, when I was avoiding, and when I was about to make a joke because the truth felt too sharp. It was supposed to be a fake date, I said. Silence. Not ordinary silence. The kind that makes you check whether the call dropped. With my brother? Yes. At a fundraiser where he kissed you in front of half the city? That part was not in the original plan. Noah exhaled slowly. Ethan, why did neither of you tell me? There it was. Not anger about Caleb. Not disgust. Hurt. Somehow that was worse. Caleb asked me not to. And you agreed? I thought it was one evening. You thought sneaking around with my brother for one evening was better than trusting me? I had no answer that did not sound selfish or foolish. I am sorry. Did he tell you about Lauren? Not until someone else did. Noah muttered something under his breath, then said, Of course he did not. You knew. I knew Dad was pushing it. I did not know Caleb planned to use you as his escape route. The words hit harder than they should have because they matched the fear already sitting inside me. That is not exactly what happened. Then what happened? I thought of Caleb saying he could not stand beside anyone else and pretend. I thought of his trembling hand after the kiss. I do not know, I admitted. Noah's voice softened, but only slightly. Come over. An hour later, I stood in his living room while he paced beside the couch, phone still clutched in his hand. How long has this been going on? He asked. Nothing has been going on. That photograph disagrees. It was one kiss. You look at each other like one kiss was 5 years late. I stared at him. Noah stopped pacing. His expression changed from frustration to something closer to realization. You still like him.